Roundy and Betty Gray are close friends.
Betty lives in another town, so she comes to sleep over once in a while. Rita lives in a quiet, God-fearing community where almost nothing bad ever happens.
But soon, that's all about to change. Because it looks like the devils also come to town.
To solve the case, investigators must follow the clues to find the killer hiding in plain sight. July 24th, 1989, Idaho Falls, eastern Idaho. It's an industrious farming hub on the scenic Snake River. Ron Levitt is supposed to be giving his co-worker Rita Rowdy a ride to the airport. But when he arrives at her house, he's surprised to find that she isn't ready.
In fact, she doesn't even answer the door. So he goes around out back, and he finds that door open. At this point, he's concerned.
When Roy makes his way to the master bedroom, he finds a woman in the bed. It's Rita. But that's not all. In a second bedroom, he finds her best friend, Betty. When Roy calls 911, he tells the operator, "I need the police and an ambulance. It looks like there's been a murder. 2 people." Roy is really freaked out when he sees somebody's left a message behind. A shrine to the devil.
Police arrive to find 49-year-old Rita Roundy and 47-year-old Betty Gray, both dead from gunshot wounds. And the shrine to the devil has everyone scratching their heads.
On the kitchen counter are 18 burnt-out red candles in a U shape, 6 on each side. 666, the mark of the devil. And scrawled on the counter are the words, "Satan loves you," written in blood.
Idaho Falls is a small, close-knit farming town. This is not a hotbed for satanic cults. The families of the 2 women are devastated. Both of them have many friends and are close to their children. These killings make no sense.
Rita Roundy worked at Fanning Wholesale. She's a top manager and very popular. Employees describe her as like the company den mother, the one you always go to for advice, the one who always organizes the office picnics. Betty Gray lives and works in Jackson, Wyoming, about 100 miles away, where she runs a pawn shop with her husband, William. Like Rita, Betty is outgoing and personable, so the 2 naturally become close friends.
It's hard to imagine why anyone would want to kill them.
There's never been a cult murder in Idaho Falls. In fact, there's never been any cult activity of any sort that the police know of.
Rita's found sitting up in bed with a book in her lap, and she's been shot once in the head. The bullet traveled through her and is embedded in the wall. It appears the barrel of the gun was held near her head before the trigger was pulled. In the guest bedroom, Betty Gray is lying face down. She too has been shot once in the head. The shootings are at close range. There's no sign of struggle and no sign of forced entry to the home. In the bathroom, police find droplets of Rita's dried blood in the sink. And the toilet seat is up. This in a home where only one woman lives. Any woman will tell you, a man was the last one there. In the living room, it looks like someone was sitting in a chair relaxing, drinking a soda, and smoking.
It appears to the police like someone killed these women, then washed his hands, used the toilet, and then sat down and calmly had a smoke. Or was the killer an invited guest, visiting the home, spending some time with them before killing them both?
The candles and saucers don't match any of the dishes in Rita's house. It appears they may have been brought to the scene by the killer himself. Aside from the shrine and the blood found in the bathroom, the house presents no other forensic evidence. They find no fingerprints in the house with the exception of Rita or Betty's. Outside the house, police find one more important piece of evidence. Fresh tire impressions in the mud. But not car tracks, bicycle tracks. And neither woman was known to own or ride a bicycle.
It's an eerie case where two likable women are murdered supposedly by a Satanist on a bicycle. But further investigation reveals that some people had a very strong motive for the crime.
In July of 1989, two well-liked middle-aged women, Rita Roundy and Betty Gray, are murdered in Idaho Falls. And the biggest clues are a satanic shrine and a set of bicycle tracks.
Investigators are trying to pinpoint who the intended target was. Betty or Rita? Or was it both? Police think the killer could have been a man, based on the evidence that the toilet seat was left up at the crime scene.
Investigators start with the closest man to the crime, Roy Levitt, who found the bodies.
Roy Levitt is a sales manager at the wholesale company where Rita works, and one of his clients is Gray's Pawn Shop in Wyoming, owned by Betty Gray and her husband William. The folks say Roy's an easygoing family man, married with 2 sons at home, and he also has 3 other sons from his first marriage. One day, Roy introduces his co-worker, Rita Roundy, to the Grays. The women hit it off right away.
They become good friends and grow quite close.
Rita grew up poor in Utah. She loved the outdoors, and she often went fishing with her dad. She gets married young, quickly has 3 children, but the marriage ends in divorce, and this becomes an unfortunate pattern for her, unlucky in love. She gets married and divorced twice more.
Betty Gray also married young. She eloped on her 18th birthday, and she has 2 grown children. Betty's managed to stay married to William, but it's been tough going. And William has a series of chronic health problems. He gets into a bad truck accident and loses his spleen and 1 kidney. Then he crashes a snowmobile and damages the remaining kidney, putting him on dialysis. Betty is basically left to run the business herself. But it's not all bad. Turns out she has a knack for appraisals.
She also has to play nurse to William, who can be a difficult patient. Roy once saw William yelling and cursing at Betty, and as much as Roy likes William, he dislikes the way he treats his wife. After months of waiting, William finally gets his kidney transplant and recuperates at home. He's frustrated with his health, and at the same time, Betty is coming into her own at the pawn shop. For the first time, she's in control of the family finances. William can't stand it, and he takes it out on Betty. This is wearing her down physically and emotionally.
Roy Levitt is nervous and anxious when he talks to police. But he finally admits he has a secret. He tells police how Betty was at the end of a rope with William, and she needed a shoulder to cry on. So, she cried on Roy's.
Roy says the affair had been going on for nearly 2 years, and that he loved her very much.
Police ask Roy, point blank, if he committed these murders.
He insists he didn't kill Betty and Rita. He says he didn't have any reason to do it.
Roy then admits that he had been to Rita's house earlier the night before. So now, police want a polygraph. Roy agrees to take the test, but the results indicate that he's being deceptive.
His proximity to the murder scene, coupled with the suspicious polygraph, makes Roy Levitt the prime suspect in these murders.
Police then learn about a man in Rita's life, someone who may have wished her harm.
After her 3rd divorce, she starts a relationship with another man that doesn't work out. And when she tries to break it off with him, he stalks her and threatens to kill her.
Her next relationship isn't much better. It turns out her boyfriend is married and didn't tell her for a long time. When she finds out, she's so angry, she calls the guy's wife to confront her. Well, the wife is as surprised as Rita and just as upset.
What's interesting to detectives is the timing of that furious phone call. Just one day before Rita's murder.
2 women are murdered, and there's no shortage of suspects. A number of men have been in and out of both Rita and Betty's lives. But who would leave a satanic shrine at the scene?
It turns out that it's not the satanic shrine, but the bicycle tire prints left at the scene that will be the biggest clue in solving this case.
In the farming community of Idaho Falls, the 1989 murders of 2 well-liked women have satanic overtones and a lot of unanswered questions.
Police are working to find the person who killed Rita Roundy and Betty Gray. They have 5 potential suspects. They start with Rita Roundy's most recent boyfriend, the man who lied to her about being married. Rita ended the relationship when she called the wife and told her what her husband was up to.
He's contrite, and she's angry, but they didn't do it. It turns out that at the time of the murders, they were at a family function in Washington State over 1,000 miles away.
Police then tracked down Rita's previous boyfriend, a man who threatened to kill her after they broke up.
He also has an alibi, and it's a good one. He was hundreds of miles away in Oregon when the crime took place.
Then there's Roy Levitt, the man who first called police to the house, and Betty Gray's secret lover. Roy had opportunity and possible motive. He could have tried to mislead the police by claiming to have discovered the bodies, and Roy didn't do well on his polygraph test.
The test is far from perfect. It essentially measures the body's response to a question, like respiration or blood pressure. But it doesn't definitively say whether or not someone's lying. And this time, it turns out that Roy wasn't lying.
Police interview Roy's wife. She's obviously not too happy about the affair, but she does provide her husband with an alibi, and her story checks out.
It seems Roy's anxiety about his secret affair with Betty must have thrown off the polygraph results.
That leaves one suspect, Betty's husband, Bill Gray. But the police have no hard evidence against him. Then, one phone call changes everything.
Police receive a call from a security guard at a hospital 3 miles from the crime scene.
The guard saw news coverage about the case and remembered something strange that happened that morning.
He says at about 3 a.m., a man rides up to the hospital parking lot on a kid's bicycle. He was hard to miss. A big guy on a little bike in the dead of night.
The man's huffing and puffing, clearly out of shape. He throws the bike into a truck with Wyoming plates. Then he gets into the cab and crouches down as if he doesn't want anyone to see him. The security guard asks the man if he needs any help. He says no and speeds off in the truck.
Police in Jackson, Wyoming spot a truck that fits the description parked outside the Gray's pawn shop. They send over a picture to Idaho Falls police, and what do they see in the background? A kid's bike leaning up against the wall.
When William Gray is brought in for questioning, he's defiant and angry. He admits there were problems with his marriage, and he openly admits that he and Betty were planning a divorce. But he denies knowing anything about his wife's affair with his friend Roy, and he strongly denies killing the women.
When police start looking more closely at Gray, they find several critical inconsistencies in his stories. First of all, he says he doesn't own a truck of the same make and color that they're looking for, but DMV records show that he does. He denies having any financial motive for having his wife dead. And yet he takes out a $250,000 insurance policy on Betty without telling her. The tire treads on that bike match perfectly with the tire impressions found outside the crime scene. And those cigarette butts in the ashtray William Gray smokes the same brand.
Police now believe they have their killer, and they think they know how he did it.
Investigators believe William Gray drove from Jacksonville, Wyoming to Idaho Falls with the express intent of killing his wife, Betty.
Gray's either angry with his wife over the affair or wants the insurance money, or both. He knows her schedule, and he knows she'll be spending the night with her friend Rita in Idaho Falls. He parks his truck in a hospital parking lot, and he rides the little bike to the house.
It's more than 3 miles, and Bill's in terrible shape, but he doesn't want to risk anybody spotting his truck outside the crime scene, so he toughs it out. Either he knows Rita keeps the back door open, or he just gets lucky. Either way, he gets inside without a problem.
He first shoots Rita, and then he goes into the guest room and kills his wife. 1 shot to the head each.
He's brought the candles and saucers to the house and sets up the satanic shrine as a ruse, writing the message in Rita's blood.
He washes up in the bathroom, and with both women dead in the house, he sits in a chair, smoking cigarettes and drinking soda.
Police believe he may have been in the house for as long as 2 hours as the women lay dead in the bedrooms. Why? Who knows? It could be he's just resting before another long bike ride.
The ride back to the hospital nearly kills him, and he doesn't count on running into the security guard at that hour. Police have a compelling case. Even Gray's own children believe he's guilty. The problem is convincing the elected district attorney.
The prosecutor says there isn't enough hard evidence to charge Bill Gray with the murder. On this day, Bill Gray walks out of the police station a free man. But the case against him is building. It's been more than 2 years since the murders of Rita Roundy and Betty Gray, and no charges have been filed. But police are convinced they have their killer, Betty's husband, William Gray.
The prosecutor refuses to file charges. He says the evidence is too flimsy to go to trial.
Rita's family is disappointed. The DA is up for re-election, and his critics say he's afraid of losing a high-profile case with his job on the line.
The family feels they have to take matters into their own hands. They refuse to let William Gray get away with a double murder. So Rita's children file a wrongful death lawsuit against Gray in civil court. This puts pressure on Gray. Witnesses are deposed, and the children want to sit Gray down under oath.
This civil action turns up the heat on the DA. It would look really bad politically if the children win in civil court and the DA doesn't even have the guts to try Gray on criminal charges.
It takes a bit of time, but the family's tactics work. The DA agrees to take the case to the grand jury.
On April 9, 1992, William Gray is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree burglary. The trial begins in May 1993, almost 4 years after the murders. In the meantime, voters have elected a new district attorney.
It's the biggest trial Idaho Falls has ever seen. These murders have shaken the community to its core. But the case is no slam dunk, just as the original DA had feared. There's no direct evidence pointing to Gray. It's all circumstantial.
No fingerprints, no witnesses, and this is way before DNA was widely used. And they never found the murder weapon.
The defense thinks they have a lot of conflicting evidence that can challenge the prosecution's case, but then they suffer a major defeat. The judge refuses to let them introduce evidence that Rita's ex-boyfriend had threatened her life.
Gray takes the stand in his own defense. He says, "I could never hurt my wife." His attorneys say he was too sick and out of shape to ride a kid's bike more than 6 miles that night. But the prosecution's key witness is the hospital security guard who points out Gray in the courtroom.
And the most dramatic moment comes when his own daughter testifies against him. She bursts into tears on the stand. She looks at her father and she says, "I don't condone what you did, but I still love you."
In the end, the jury has no love for William Gray. On June 8, 1993, after 17 hours of deliberation, they convict him of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of burglary, with enhancements for the use of a firearm. He's given 2 consecutive life sentences.